Hello. I have finally been freed from the evil grasp of my AP Literature exam, and although my AP Visual Art deadline is looming far too close in the future, I've decided to use my time in a more enjoyable way. For any of you who may know me, you know that I'm an avid letterboxd user and frequently watch movies at times when it's less than appropriate. School, car rides, hangouts with friends. To be honest, at this rate, I fear my brain will be rotted from the inside out by the time I'm 20. Anyways, as the halfway point of 2025 is vastly approaching, I've decided to go through my almost half-year recap of movies I've watched this year. Now, before I start, I'd like to clarify that all of my opinions are my own, and although I have a passion for consuming films, none of my reviews are serious or of any hate to the films I'm going to discuss. Everyone has a right to their own opinion. On the 1st of January, I embarked on a journey to a new country filled with rich culture, language, tourist destinations, a wonderful unlimited bar, and amazing people. During this trip, I watched 30 films, not to include the 5 I consumed on the 31st of December on my way. Now, some may say that this was a waste of my vacation time, but I disagree. I sat outside. I enjoyed fresh air. I sat in the cool salt water while watching movies that were objectively terrible in different regions of Netflix, and I had a wonderful time. I painted, I read, I took many walks, I drank so many pina coladas that I fear they are still in my system, and I watched movies. The first film I watched in 2025 was Red, White, and Royal Blue. Now, I will admit that this was a rewatch, but I had watched in the New Year's of 2024, so I felt like it was only right to keep the tradition going. The movie came out in 2023 and was directed by Matthew Lopez. I rated the film 4 out of 5 stars. Over the last while, we've received a lot more LGBTQ plus representation in the media than we have in the years past. Out of all the classics, or my favorites, A Portrait of a Lady on Fire, Brokeback Mountain, all of them are so sad. S-A-D, sad. It's about time that a movie with a good budget has corny relationships and a dialogue that includes LGBTQ plus characters. The lines are corny, almost cringeworthy at times. The characters don't take themselves seriously, but that's what I love about it. A movie that doesn't take itself so seriously. Alright, on to the next film of the year. Watched the next day was Blade Runner 2049. The movie came out in 2017, so I did have it coming, but I've been getting recommendations for this movie everywhere. Constantly. It followed me everywhere I went. You look lonely. I can fix that. It dominated every social media site I was on for the longest time. I liked some parts, loved others, but at times I felt a bit lost in their world. Overall, I rated it 3.5 stars. Before we move on to our third film, let me just say that allowing its users to use partial stars was the best thing letterboxd has done. I was using Goodreads the other day, and I could not use my highly curated rating system that I use for movies, and I was distraught. I have not opened the app since. Anyways, moving on. The fourth film I watched was titled Disobedience. I found the movie from some list on some site, and I couldn't believe I've never heard of it before. I mean, Rachel Weisz? I'm definitely pronouncing that wrong. Please don't kill me. I felt like I'd been living under a rock. I felt like a fraud. I rated the film 3 out of 5 stars. It was a good film, but nothing stood out to me. In fact, in the process of making this video was when I remembered this film even existed. It was great, and I remember some beautiful scenes, but it didn't impact me emotionally enough to remember more than a broad summary of the film. The next day, I watched a film that I think has the most controversial rating in this list, A Rainy Day in New York. I know the script is bad. I know the characters suck. I know that it's a generally hated film despite all the big-name actors in it. So why the fuck did I rate it 4.5 stars? Pure irony. I'm not sure if my interpretation is the correct one, but every line in the script felt like it was mocking itself. Every subtle movement of the characters seemed ironic. I loved every minute. I felt like as a viewer, I was in on something with the producers of the film that the characters weren't in on. Like I understood something about their character that they didn't. Shoot me if you must, but I loved this film to bits. The next day, I went off on a bit of a movie bender. I watched 3 movies back to back, which did not necessarily belong in a triple feature. I started off this marathon with Always Be My Maybe, which I felt was mediocre in every way a romantic comedy could be. The jokes were unfunny, the bond between the characters was lukewarm at best. I understood what they were going for with this film, but it completely missed the mark for me. Some scenes made me entertained, and others urged me to jump into the nearby ocean during a jellyfish warning. Overall, a solid 2.5 stars was my rating for this one. Quickly after finishing that movie, I needed a terrible romantic comedy to cleanse my palate. Something from the 2000s, stupid plot that makes me question if there was a single sober mind behind the production of it. Something so bad it's fun to watch. I present Little Italy. The movie sucks. It's unrealistic. It's a Shakespeare reenactment that falls much shorter than the other ones in the genre, like 10 Things I Hate About You. And the acting was so bad, I had to look away at multiple parts. A perfect half-star film that cleansed my taste just enough to jump into a final film that was actually meaningful. Eat, Pray, Love was my final film of this joy ride of a triple feature, and it inspired me to watch tons of Julia Roberts' other films. I love that even though she found something meaningful in every country she visited, she kept going. She learned more about herself even when she got comfortable and didn't have to. Most movies have a main character moving through their life with a goal in mind, but a romantic interest or something stops them. They become stagnant, not progressing. This movie didn't do that. She kept going, and she learned more life lessons in every branch of her life. I rated the movie 3 out of 5 stars, although I think that maybe I should have rated it a little bit higher. The next day, I consumed another triple feature, this time with 20th Century Women, 20th Century Girl, and Set It Up. I watched the first two simply because I couldn't remember which one I actually wanted to watch and which one just had an eerily similar title, so I just went with both. I ironically rated the films the same as well. 20th Century Women was a film that I can only compare to The Virgin Suicides in the sense that it's filmed through the perspective of men looking into women's lives, but it's actually accurate. There were many scenes in this film that made me think, and it stuck with me a couple days after I watched it. I still remember the exact cigarettes the main character smoked and the feeling of warmth in the fictional home. Deserved an overall rating of 3.5 stars. Moving on to our second, suspiciously similarly titled film, we have 20th Century Girl. I don't watch K-dramas very often just because my attention span is so low that I physically cannot concentrate solely on the subtitles without doing something else while watching. I gave this one a try anyways. I enjoyed how they told the story and the compassion shown throughout the characters' relationships. The plot twist in this movie surprised me, but I can't say it's not because I'm not used to K-drama plot twists. The ending to my second triple feature within 24 hours was none other than Set It Up. Another terrible romantic comedy, but this time with redeemable features. I thought that the purposeful irony and the arrogance of some of the characters gave it charm, and the fast-paced nature allowed for me to stay interested in the entire film. I really like the concept in this film of liking someone because of their best qualities and loving them despite their worst qualities.
When I was little, my grandmother, she used to say, "You like because, and you love despite." You like someone because of all of their qualities, and you love someone despite some of their qualities. Mikey.
This whole concept in this seemingly shitty romantic comedy was why I gave it 2.5 out of 5 stars instead of something lower, as the idea stuck with me a long time after I watched it. Who knew that a shitty romantic comedy starring Glenn Powell could actually make me think something? Now, with the amount of triple features in this half-year review so far, about 3 days into the year, you may be thinking, Abby, how do you have time for this nonsense? But wait until you hear of my quadruple feature that I did not only once, but 2 days in a row, right after this. I can sense the concern rising exponentially through the screen, but I ask you to consider this in response. When I say I love movies, I'm not lying, and throughout the year I spent every waking available moment indulging in them. What is one else supposed to do during winter break? For my first quadruple feature of the year on the 7th, I started with You Are So Not Invited to My Bat Mitzvah. I rated this film 1.5 stars because it lacked the charm present in other coming-of-age films, in my opinion. Many of the characters lacked depth, and although middle schoolers are mean, I felt like this took it to a backstabbing extreme that it's not as common as it seems in 2000s films. Although I did think that the aspect in this film of Adam Sandler's daughters, like playing his daughters in the film, was a nice touch, I think that the movie itself was lacking in multiple different ways. The second film I watched was slightly better, scoring a mediocre rating of 2.5 stars. Holiday, starring Emma Roberts, who at this point is becoming one of my most watched actors, contained one of the most insane plot points I've seen in a film. Spoiler warning, she shit herself as they fell in love. What director writes that script, reviews it, and then forces real-life people to act out that scene? The stars I gave to this movie were purely for entertainment purposes because, really, I don't know how that's possible that they reviewed this script and then approved it. Honestly, I'm more concerned for Emma Roberts, I forget the word for it, but whatever they used to, find other movies for the actors, I'm surprised she has not fired them yet, because what the hell was this movie? She's a better actor than this. The rating may be controversial, but I hated My Big Fat Greek Wedding. I thought this movie would be a classic, and that I would at least rate it 2.5 stars, But here we are with a big fat half star for this movie. I was almost bored to tears by this film, which is why I desperately needed another film to cleanse my palate immediately after watching this one. This movie, My Big Fat Greek Wedding, like only reminds me of my English teacher, and I hate my English teacher. So, I don't know if this rating was based on associations with her, but I hated it so much. I was so bored. I thought it would be actually good considering they made multiple ones after this. I refuse to watch them because I feel like I will genuinely start contemplating suicide after watching them. My final film of the night, which saved me from genuinely regretting ever deciding to start liking movies, was Pretty Woman. As a certified Julia Roberts lover, I enjoyed this film very much. I rated it 3.5 stars due to its beautiful montages, amazing character depth and growth, and the chemistry between the characters that so many rom-coms miss entirely. Not only that, but the concept was original and not a copy and paste of another 2000s film. It was different, beautiful, it was moving. Moving onwards and upwards, on the 8th of January, I watched 4 films, again. And the first of that was Anyone But You. Do not get me wrong, I love Sydney Sweeney's role in Euphoria, but this film was terrible. The characters fell flat, they lacked depth, and frankly, the storyline was forgettable. I rated this film a 1.5 stars, which disappointed me so much due to the hope I felt after watching Pretty Woman the night before. I awoke with the motivation to start a new day, watch new movies, find some new favorites. I was filled with delighted expectation for my next film, and I was met with this flaming pile of garbage. Obviously, over the last couple days, romantic comedies have not been working out for me, so in retaliation, I decided to switch the genre. Carry On was shown to me through Netflix's top 10 movies of the week, and after seeing the trailer tag, I decided to indulge myself. I was surprised to find that it kept me on the edge of my seat with plot points that made sense but still kept me guessing. I love the layout of the film, and I think that it contributed to its higher rating of 3.5 stars for me. Although this film was pretty good, I missed my brain rot rom-coms. So in order to chase the high of Pretty Woman's success, I watched another film starring Julia Roberts. Runaway Bride in many contexts is considered a classic, and I surprisingly did not hate it. I rated it 2.5 stars because it didn't quite live up to Pretty Woman. The chemistry between the characters was lacking slightly, and the actions of the main character made no sense to me. While watching the movie, I kept thinking, this is the scene where I will finally understand this girl. And it never happened. The movie had potential, but I ended the movie with a multitude of questions left unanswered. And honestly, if this person has married so many people before, and they have this big revelation watching her, like, wedding tapes where they finally figure out something about her character, do you not think that the multiple people doing reports on her and, like, writing newspaper reports about her and the fact that she's, like, basically a celebrity for ghosting her, like, soon-to-be husbands would, like, find this information about her beforehand? It confused me so much, because if you're doing a report on someone, would you not learn this information about them before you post the findings in a newspaper? The next day, on the 9th, I started with watching a genre that I don't normally indulge in, musicals. Don't get me wrong, I'm a fan of them. I love Heather's Hamilton, the basic introduction to musicals, but when Wicked, an already popular musical that I hadn't watched before, was turned into a movie, I knew I had to watch it. I surprised myself with this movie. Although I already knew that the budget was high, the amazing cinematography was the reason for my rating of 3.5 stars, and it gave me more context to the beloved Wizard of Oz. I had never heard anything about the Wicked musical before I watched this movie, so I was honestly surprised to have liked it. I kind of assumed the worst out of it, but it ended up surprising me in good ways, so I'm not complaining. Later that evening, with my younger cousins, I watched Liar Liar. Now, for some context, I don't find many films funny, especially those with, like, the only humor is funny faces. This film is exactly that. A compilation of funny faces that were formatted into a film that lacked proper plot for a concept that had a lot of potential. Because of that, this movie was only rated 1.5 stars for me. After a mere 24-hour break, I watched another quadruple feature. At this point, looking back on my letterboxd diary, I'm getting concerned for myself. After 10 days, I had already watched 24 films, which are ridiculous statistics. Back to my usual genre, I started this quadruple feature with Your Place or Mine. This movie genuinely concerned me for the child in the movie left with this incapable man. I hated the chemistry in this film, and the lack of depth almost disgusted me. One letterboxd user by the name of Joe A accurately depicts my emotions towards the characters, saying that they had more chemistry with the pizza that they ate while watching the film than anything else on the screen. Common with other films in this shallow nature, I rated it 1.5 stars. Jumping on to something a tad more intellectually stimulating, I watched the original Nosferatu. This was the first silent film I've ever watched, and I can say for certain that it was a good impression of the genre. I will admit that with my short attention span, the scenes showing only text lasted far too long for my liking, and was most of the reason that I didn't rate this higher than 3.5 stars. Many people say, this isn't good enough reasons to take off stars for a film. It's my ranking, and I can do whatever I want. Like, the scenes were the same length as the reading screens, which just made me so annoyed while watching it. If they were just a tad bit shorter, I probably would have rated it way higher. But by the end of the movie, I started to resent every single time these characters had dialogue. Like, I was praying for them to just shut up so I could just watch what was happening on screen. Like, they would be having the most, like, thrilling scene ever. Like, this guy's about to be killed, like they're being hunted down by this person, and then all of a sudden it'll switch to a text screen with dialogue that lasts like 15 seconds, and suddenly all of the energy that I had before, all of the parts of me that were on the edge of my seat waiting for what was going to happen, just disappeared. I was just annoyed after that. I wasn't scared anymore. I wasn't thrilled by the plot. I was just annoyed. So it had like tons of potential, and I really liked it, as like, especially for my first silent film, but it annoyed me so much. One of my most hated films from the year was Bridget Jones's Diary. My grandma loves this film, but I was met with severe boredom and hate for every single aspect of the film. Every single personality in the movie made me feel so much unbridled rage that there was no other conclusion I could come to than 0.5 star. After this recommendation from my grandma, I lost faith in her judgment, and unfortunately held it against her for several months afterwards. That's how much hatred I had for this movie. I'm still in Cuba at this point, and after watching this movie, I asked my aunt, like, what do you guys see in this movie? Like, what is good about it? Because I genuinely see no redeeming qualities. And they were like, well, it shows, like, somewhat of a more realistic depiction for someone of middle-aged, like, age. And they said, oh, well, you'll get it when you're older. If I understand this movie when I'm older and I genuinely approve of it, someone needs to shoot me in the head because it's so bad. Like, if I come to a point where I rewatch this movie and I genuinely think it's good, someone needs to, like, check if I'm taking my medication. Someone needs to, like, check if I've gone senile early, because I hated this movie so much. I needed another palate cleanser. After a pina colada and a quick breath of fresh beach air I desperately needed after that terrible movie, I rewatched a classic from my childhood, The Princess Diaries. This movie is objectively bad. The CGI, characters, and concept is all obviously made for children and therefore lacks a lot of critical thought that would have made it better. I found out through this movie that nostalgia has definitely clouded my vision. After this, I had to see if my hypothesis was true. After putting my lab coat on and my glasses, I conducted my very important research after a restful night of sleep, watching the second Princess Diaries movie. This movie only proved what I had feared. My childhood was a lie. This movie, rated 0.5 star less than the previous, killed any hope I had in childhood movies for a couple days. Particularly one of the main characters, who I described in my review as a stupid, misogynistic fuck, ruined every perception of this film I had before this. I had one last hope to prove this hypothesis wrong. A light at the end of the tunnel. An undeniably peak movie that is beloved by all. The Lego Movie. This movie changed the trajectory of my life. With a soundtrack comparable to movies like Frozen and a comedy that can be countered by no other, this 4-star movie restored my faith in humanity and movies overall. I feverishly loaded up the second Lego Movie. Whether I would be proved wrong once again or aid another theory that sequels are terrible, which is objectively true, at this point my research has started to drive me crazy. My review of this film was quote-unquote, "Everything is not awesome. Wake up, accept the truth. You are in a simulation." Fueled only by spite in order to prove this theory false, I finished the film. 2.5 stars. Adequate. Not terrible, not excellent, mediocre. A score that proved, despite some terrible rewatches, nostalgia and sentiment had not clouded my poor young adult mind's vision. This fever dream of an experiment was over, and I was back to watching terrible comedy films. The date was now January 12th, and Hancock joined my watch list. It felt like this film was wonderfully made in the first half, and then when the second half rolled around, the entire production crew had been replaced by a group of illiterate monkeys. My average 1.5 star ratings have returned, which symbolized my return to sanity. The first 5-star film of the year was Hirikiri. This movie doubted me a tad. I was worried that it would be slow like how I found Nosferatu, and the plot surrounding samurais would bore me. I was delightfully surprised. This movie moved me in ways I cannot describe. Thoughts and concepts entered my mind that had not entered this space before. I cannot recommend this movie enough to anyone watch it, even if you think that it's not your thing, because it will be. There's something in this movie for everyone, and it genuinely made me think so much about like what is humanity, who are humans, what is revenge, all of this kind of stuff. And unless you genuinely hate thinking and you're stupid, you'll love this movie. I needed a day to recover from this film, as what happens when I watch a 5-star film, and then I got back into it with Meet Cute. Can you notice a pattern in my logged movies yet? Although this movie kind of freaked me out based on the sheer dedication that the character had to repeating so many days with the same man over and over and over again, hearing the same stories, killing her past self so many times, going through this much trouble for a mediocre man, I rated it 3.5 stars. And I thought the ending was added something deep to an otherwise comedy movie. Now, what kind of like made me think during this movie was this girl, every time she rewinded time and had to kill her past self over and over again, like, is she committing suicide or is she a murderer? And like, if it is suicide and she's done it over and over and over again, would she be is there a term for like a serial killer but like for suicide? Like, is it like a serial suicider? I don't know. And like, if she does it all on the same day over and over again, does it count as her committing these acts over and over and over again? Or does it just count as one continuous act that she's not forced, because she purposely chooses to redo her day every single day with this man. But is it a new act every time, or is it the same act over and over again? Did she kill this past self once or hundreds of times? I guess we'll never know, but I'm still confused about that. And I need a professional's opinion on this because I'm genuinely like really curious about this. Because time travel is something that could happen in our future. What if this happens to us? Like, we need to create new words for this because I'm just thinking in the future here. I'm putting these thoughts in your brain for a future that will probably come to us in our lifetime. And I suggest that we start considering this now so this movie logic can be applied to real life because I'm really curious. At this point, after the last movie, I have arrived home from Cuba, and my feverish consumption of films had slowed to a reasonable rate. To be honest, Closer was a movie that felt like badly written fan fiction. Put your average 12-year-old Bakudeku fan in front of a computer for a couple hours, and you would probably end up with a script similar to this one. And to be honest, they probably just did that exact same thing and then changed all the names to it. With the description of the movie, I had hope of enjoying it, but I ended up with a lackluster 1.5-star rating. I'm not mad, I'm just severely disappointed because I had so much hope for this. After that short intermission, we're back. It's been about 4 days. I've been working hard at work. I'm still in my work clothes. And you can probably tell that by my face. My lust for life is gone from my eyes. My youthful smile has been faded from my face. I am a husk of the woman I once was. About 10 seconds for you, and about 20 work hours for me. Let's get back into it, though. Let's get rid of all that sad shenanigans. We're back to making stupid YouTube videos instead of studying, because that's who I am at the core of my being, is making stupid YouTube videos instead of studying. My second 5-star film of the year may have been slightly biased, if I'm honest. My first date with my girlfriend after being stranded in another country, watching a movie in theater, which is just about my favorite thing on the planet. Some of my favorite actors, Nosferatu, surprised me in the best ways possible. And the eerie nature of the film stayed in my system for days after watching it. Automatically after logging it, I placed it in my top 4 in the app. When I tell you this reaction was light speed, I'm serious. It was slightly concerning. Some may call me the Flash now, but we'll never know. I mean, I haven't seen me and him in the same room, so I don't know if you guys have, but if you have, just let me know, because I am anything but a liar on this app. Another movie I watched in theaters 2 weeks later was Sonic the Hedgehog. Shadow's character design did something to me. Like, the movie was good, and I love the sweet family dynamics in the movies like these, allowing for a break in between the action, but Sonic's design was the real star of the show for this. Fun fact, my uncle or cousin, someone related to me, was in the second Sonic film and played a Russian dancer. Anyways, this is one of those kids' movies that was written really well and still showed some character development and backstory. I rated it 3.5 stars. I still have yet to watch the Knuckles TV show, which is on my watch list, I promise you. But for now, I've just watched the Sonic movies. I have to get back into the lore of it. But the next day, I watched Five Nights at Freddy's, although I admit I was very late to the party. I hated this movie, and the only reason I rated it 2 stars was because of the nostalgia over the original games. I hated the way that they portrayed the animatronics, and I found it really slow for most of the film, which is insane because when I was little, I almost shit myself watching gameplay of the franchise. I feel like they could have gone a bit more into the backstory behind how the animatronics ended up as they did, and more into the scary aspect of the animatronics moving when you're not looking instead of, wow, these animatronics have weird red eyes, but they're so nice. Let's make a play for it. No. I never thought the fictional animatronics would get mischaracterized so badly, but here we are. Now to clarify, I'm not the biggest fan of the games, and I'm not MatPat level informed on the lore, but call me crazy, but it's not what I remember from the games. Okay? At this point, we're now into February. Finally. January was an intense month for movies, and at this point, I've gone through so many emotional roller coasters in the form of watching movies that I don't know if we can recover with these next few months. But let's see. Stay tuned. Let's see if I've made a recovery. From this point onwards, I assure you that there are way less quadruple features in the next couple months. But I guess you'll have to be the judge of that. Keep watching to find out. After Five Nights at Freddy's, I decided to continue on to watch the movies that I missed when they were very popular in theaters and went on to watch Challengers. This one disappointed me much less than the previous one, and I ended up rating it 4 out of 5 stars. Even though most people, including me before watching the movie, categorized it as a tennis threesome, it was a lot deeper than that and had a great deal of symbolism in the sport that I really enjoyed and felt added a lot more character development into some of the people in the movie. Inspired by my insane January logged movies, which contained a lot of movies with Hugh Grant, I decided to watch another one. In general, I enjoyed them, but not this one. I was bored. I hated so much of the script. I hated so many of the characters. This movie isn't necessarily bad because of the actual movie qualities, but just the fact that I was so bored out of my mind that I would rather it be titled 4 Weddings and 2 Funerals and have the second one be mine. I think that I would rather die than watch this boring 1.5 star film movie again. I needed something more interesting, something faster paced, something undeniably peak. I decided to watch Hamilton. I love this musical so much, and the songs are so unbelievably catchy. I love the subtle references to other songs and characters within the musical and the layering and work that was put into it. You can just tell that Lin-Manuel Miranda, just sat at his computer for hours a day watching this, working on this film, okay? You can just tell. Anyways, it's one of those musicals that just get better the more you watch it, and you recognize more things as you go, and it's just so interesting. I forced my grandma to watch this movie with me a couple months ago, and I kept pausing her to tell little details which she did not enjoy, but her overall experience was good nonetheless. After this, I watched another movie in theater with my friends. Companion was a wonderful film that had one of my favorite actors, and I think genuinely showed the negative impacts of things like AI in a proper sense rather than Megan, which is just good robot, go bad. The 4.5 star film genuinely showed character development and had twists that I didn't end up expecting, making me enjoy it a lot more and helped the characters grow even further throughout the movie. It was just one of those shows where I had to sit for a while in the empty theater and ponder about it a moment before exiting. Self-Reliance is one of those overly repeated movies that you find on TikTok in multiple parts next to a video of someone playing Minecraft parkour or making soup. So of course, as with these films, I could never find the second part. I scoured the internet, and with no 60-second clips of the movie available for this section of the movie I was watching, I decided to actually sit down and watch the entire thing. The movie was funnier than I expected for a movie about murder, and I thought that the characters hunting them throughout the movie being revealed gave an interesting and humane touch to the whole trope about that anonymous villain. I ended up rating the movie 3 out of 5 stars, and it felt like a human version of that whole concept where there's this immortal snail hunting you down. That's what it felt like, but it was humans instead of snails. So I found it really interesting, and I found like it connected to a lot of other things that I've heard about before, like this weird concept. This next movie genuinely scared me. Not because it was a thriller in nature, but because of the similarities I found in I Like Movies were so similar to me in real life. I was terrified. This movie is about a 17-year-old Canadian obsessed with movies who has a recently dead dad, bad relationship with his mother, weirdly close with all of his coworkers, kind of worried that he won't get into his dream university, and eventually decides to go to another one for the scholarships that he receives, overshares at work, somehow always stressed about money despite working all the time, and so many more minute details that sounded so familiar to me. Fun fact, I'm a 17-year-old Canadian obsessed with movies, has a recently dead father, bad relationship with my mother. I'm weirdly close with my coworkers. I spent all summer worried about not getting into my dream university, and then I decided to go to a different one based on the scholarships I received. I tend to overshare at work. I'm somehow always stressed about money, despite working 5 shifts a week. I shared these similarities with my grandma, and she made a joke of that somehow the director had gotten a camera installed in the house. She was joking. But honestly, I wouldn't doubt it, because how the fuck did they get so many major aspects of my life so similar in this movie? This film resonated with me so much for obvious reasons and gave me a new outlook on life, on the life that I have right now, which is why I rated it 5 stars and it automatically jumped into my top 4 on letterboxd. I mean, when you watch a movie and someone has this many similarities to you in real life, and you see how they walk through their life and how they make decisions in theirs, it made such an impact on me because I realized that we're so different yet so similar. And it made me just rethink a lot of decisions I've made in my life recently and how I walk through life as a 17-year-old Canadian obsessed with movies and blah, blah, blah. Anyways, I'm an avid consumer of lesbian media. My natural state is reading Yuri in my bedroom, watching lesbian movies, going on dates with my lesbian girlfriend, watching a season of one of the best written TV shows ever featuring lesbian characters just for it to get canceled after one season. With a suspiciously low amount of lesbian movies in my logged list for 2025, I knew this had to change. I've had the incredibly true adventure of two girls in love on my watch list for an incredibly long time, and it was finally time to indulge. I love this movie in so many different ways. It was incredibly realistic for relationships in high school and had so much representation for different family makeups. It was funny and lighthearted, but also delved into depictions of homophobia that happens so often daily. I rated this movie 4 out of 5 stars because of that. At this point, I've had an incredible run for movies. So many high ratings in a row that, as a hater, is so impressive. All good things must come to an end. And for me, it was Love Hurts, which I watched in the theater again. This movie was 90% action and had more plot points and development with the side characters than it did with the real main characters. For the montages they do on the past of these characters, hyping them up to be something meaningful and important to the plot, the characters themselves ended up being one-dimensional and more of a concept than actuality. I rated it 2.5 stars because it did have a good concept and cool cinematography, but for me, it lacked a bunch of depth that would have made me rate it much higher. Despite this little bump in the road, a few days later, I watched another 4.5 star movie called Amélie. I love this movie and all the small niche references to itself within it. I love when movies have silent montages of a character doing something without narration to the audience, representing a sense of curiosity and unknowingness also within the character. This movie felt like I was exploring the world for the first time through a new lens, and it genuinely still impacts how I see the people around me even now. When I was watching this, I felt like a baby who had opened its eyes for the first time, and I was like looking at the world again, because that's how much it changed my worldview. I felt like I was reborn, like a new person. I was reborn. It's so amazing, and I cannot recommend this movie enough. Of course, I can't go a couple weeks without watching a romantic comedy without experience severe withdrawals, worse than quitting nicotine. Ironically, I started the remake of She's All That last year before I watched the original. Most people expect sequels to be worse than the first film, but I hated this one too. Ah, yes. Let's remove the glasses of a character with a genuine personality in a 2000s rom-com. Oh my gosh. Is that true beauty I see? Suddenly her personality is quirky instead of weird. Oh my god. I love the main character, which is why I gave most of the credit in my review of this film. Oh my god! I love the main character, which is why I gave where I give most of the credit in my review of this film, rating it 2.5 stars. But how hard is it to value someone for who they truly are without context? As someone who wears glasses, I genuinely have never heard of this sort of reaction when I take off my glasses, and I would probably kill myself if I did. So why the hell is this trope so popular in movies? I guess we'll never know. After this actual crime against women that I watched Little Women. Now, here's an actual example of a movie that doesn't objectify women and realizes that different people have different goals in life. I enjoy the added bonus content that they gave to this movie and was not present in the previous movie, which is why I rated it a little higher than the original at 4 stars. Now, a little over 2 weeks later, I decided to watch Hamilton again. I know this is a little crazy, but hear me out. It's not as bad as watching 4 films in one day, 2 days in a row. Objectively, watching the same 3-hour film twice in the same month is much less brain melting than whatever the hell I was doing in Cuba. I rated the film the same as I did when I watched it just 2 weeks before, and I don't think my opinion will change no matter how many times I watch it. Gone much faster than January. My last film of February was Drive Away Dolls. Although there was a surprising and almost suspicious amount of dildos in this movie, it surprised me with the chemistry present in the main couple. I could sense the yearning a mile away, and it made me so happy when I realized I wasn't just imagining it playing out before me. This movie was funny, it was silly, it was romantic. It was a 3 out of 5-star movie in my books. I took about a week break from movies, and then I logged the new Ruby Frank documentary. Now, I know this isn't a movie, but it was short enough for me to qualify it as one. This documentary genuinely triggered me in insane ways because I didn't realize how similar these children's lives were to my own, and the actions of the mother reflecting on my mother's own actions towards me. Now, I'd like to clarify that this refers to everything but the severity of her crimes before her sentencing, and I'm mostly referencing her strange punishments like taking away the children's beds and using religion against them. I barely forced my way through the documentary because of this, and even though I related to it a fair bit, I couldn't rate it anything over 3 stars. The same day, I watched The Painted Door for my English class because we had to read the story a couple days before. Even though the movie didn't make me want to wash my eyes out with bleach, the story was so much better. I rated the movie 2 stars, and I really didn't like it. I remember that after we read the story, we had a conversation in my classroom about who was blamed for the death of the husband, and the amount of sexism in the room was astonishing. Not only that, but the amount of people who excused Anne's actions just because she was a woman made me so frustrated every time we discussed it that it genuinely ruined my day. I distinctly remember sitting in the back of the classroom, rage tweeting about the idiotic conversations that were happening right in front of me and how people could be so stupid and lack common sense and reading skills. Oh my gosh. The next couple days, I got into watching some classics. Harry Potter. Soon after we started dating, I found out my girlfriend had never watched or read Harry Potter and refused to do it now. I spent months convincing her to change her mind. I genuinely considered a presentation or a trap where I could trick her into watching it simply for the sake of watching a classic, but nothing came to mind that would actually get her to watch it. One day, we drank a little bit too much wine, and I absentmindedly asked her to watch it with me. She casually responded with, "Sure." Are you serious? I spent months considering presentations, various things I could lure her with into the living room to watch it with me, and all it took was a glass of wine? This movie took us double the time to watch it because I stopped the film every couple of minutes to explain a detail or add a comment about one of the scenes, and I ended up rating the first film 3 stars and the second one 3.5 stars. We had a little movie marathon, and we finished the 2 in the first night. After a couple days break, we got right back into it with the third and fourth films, which are by far some of my favorites. The third film I rated 4.5 stars, and the fourth I rated 3.5 stars. I distinctively remember my mother showing me the fourth film when I was about 4 years old, and seeing the ending scene with the graveyard right before the absolutely gruesome polyjuice potion transfiguration scene that scared the shit out of me. I sat there shaking in my boots while she just sat there like casually eating the popcorn, all because I wanted to stay up and watch a movie with her. I was about to cry watching this, and she was just sitting there casually like, "Wow, this is great cinematography." Everyone loves a good classic retelling, other than me, apparently. She's All That, which was a recreation of a Shakespeare play or something, and now Sydney White, which is a recreation of Snow White. Crazy title, by the way. Such creativity shown by the creators of this film. Like, honestly, amazing creativity there. I never would have thought of the discussion that they went through creating the title for this film. The thought that was probably put into it. Both were rated terribly, and the latter rated a mere 1.5 stars. The only good thing to come out of this movie was Lenny, one of the supposed 7 dwarves that had the perfect nerdy charm to him. After logging this terrible film, the first thing I did was watch all of the 4 Lenny edits that I found on TikTok, after which I was severely disappointed in the lack of content. On trend with shitty movies from the year I was born, Superbad was never really a hit for me. I understand that a lot of people think it's funny, but I genuinely don't understand how 3 virgins running around and objectifying girls is peak comedy. Now, call me woke, call me a blue-haired liberal, all you want, but I just don't find it funny. I don't understand how people find this film funny. I will admit some scenes were good, and if it was formatted a little bit differently and maybe included some better jokes, I definitely would have rated it higher than 2.5 stars. Every time I watch this movie, I expect it to be better than it actually is, and every single time I sit for 2 hours with a completely straight face and don't laugh at a single joke made throughout the film. The next movie would have been rated extremely high for me if the age gap between the characters wasn't so weird that it genuinely freaked me out. The main love interest could be the boy's mother, and they reiterate that frequently throughout the movie. Every time that I almost forget about this insane age gap, they say it again, and again, and again. I felt like every 2 minutes there was a reminder of the strange age difference in an explicit way that made me feel disgusted. Bros was a movie that I watched ironically and ended up hating the characters unironically. Everything they did made me want to shrivel up and die. The lack of communication in their relationship told me that they should have probably given up after the first meeting. I rated it 2.5 stars for the potential in the movie that they had, but the characters genuinely pissed me off so bad that it was hard to keep going during parts. Like, this movie was made unironically, and I was like, maybe I'll enjoy it ironically. Maybe I'll think it's, like, ironically funny. I unironically hated everything about it. The first film of April was another movie that I watched in theaters. For a movie about unicorns, death of a unicorn scared the shit out of me. I sat there for 2 hours that this movie the 2 hours that this movie lasted, absolutely clinging to my girlfriend out of terror. It was like Jurassic Park, but with unicorns and more vaping than anyone would probably expect in a movie like this. Overall, it was good, and I thought that the lore of the unicorns and past paintings and stuff was really cool, and added some extra insight into their backstory. The entire movie, I was confused how there was no other reports or sightings or attacks of anyone, of, like, anything, due to the fact that it was obvious that they were in the area and probably all around the world. Not even some fake Loch Ness Monster type photos posted on the internet. Anyways, I rated the movie 3.5 stars. 2 days later, on the day of release in my city, I watched the Minecraft movie in theater with my friends. I was absolutely devastated when I left the theater and immediately went to go see edits on TikTok, and there were none because me and my friend were early to the party. I mean, at this point, not a single soul was talking about the characters literally 69ing on the screen. How did that scene get approved? It was obvious that with the subtle references to Minecraft YouTubers and Herobrine that this film was targeted towards older fans of Minecraft, but honestly, I think they spent way too much time trying to appeal to the older audience and not enough time fleshing out the characters and their motivations. I mean, one of the characters that I don't even remember the name of, which just proves my point in this because I watched it like a month ago, like, was transported to the Minecraft realm and then had not a single meaningful line of dialogue that told us anything about her character throughout the entire rest of the movie. Even though the references were cool and the CGI was amazing, the reason I couldn't give this film more than 3.5 stars, even though I wanted to, was because of the utter lack of character development in anyone but Steve. The to-do list was just straight up weird. If I was romantically involved with someone and I found a list in their bedroom detailing all of the sexual acts they wanted to do, and then lists of people that they did them with, and then half of the people on that list not being me, I would be pissed as fuck too. This is weird. Like, I think that in general, the people in this film were not paying attention in their kindergarten class when they were told that some thoughts should stay inside thoughts. And I know for a fact, if you were making a list of these sexual acts you want to do with random people just for the sake of doing it, you're not ready for those sexual experiences. Never let peer pressure force you into doing things you don't want to do. Some of the interactions in this movie were good, and the bond between the main character and her boss turned from teasing to endearing, but in general, it was a 2.5-star movie. One thing I will say about this movie is seeing Donald Glover unexpectedly show up on my screen made my absolute week. I was so grateful when he saved this movie for me. Incoming is a movie that tried way too hard to recreate the charm of something made 20 years prior and failed miserably. I absolutely despise movies of this genre revolving around boys being disrespectful and doing stupid shit while also going after older girls that are way out of their age range. These movies somehow find a way to make every action that these boys take and make it the most disrespectful thing in existence and then somehow pass it off as relatable. In my opinion, the only thing that made this 1.5-star movie did was encourage boys to be stupid. I started at The Freedom Writers with the internal idea that it was just a copy of The Dead Poets Society, which is a movie that I really enjoy, and I left it in tears. This movie and the stories of these students moved me so much more than I thought it would, and it genuinely surprised me how much it moved me. I'm already excited to rewatch it again, and I just love the character development and the bond that these characters have with each other and their teacher. It just makes me so happy, like, watching it. Not to be a fake edgelord, but movies in general don't move me very often, and as you can tell by my pretty harsh rating system, these movies don't have a strong impact on me. Overall, I rated it 4 out of 5 stars, and I'm already looking forward to watching the movie again. Another back-to-back 4 out of 5-star film was Welcome to the Dollhouse. Now, unlike Incoming, this movie was actually realistic for me. I felt like the depictions of a middle schooler was accurate, and it displayed the character's grief and happiness in ways that I related to when I was at the character's age. I really recommend this movie, and the way that it filmed just adds to the tone of the movie as a whole, and it feels like just this home movie, like this home filmed documentary that just depicts his character's life. I loved it. I admit the next show was once again not a movie, but a short documentary, but I logged it anyways. I don't care. The new documentary on Piper Rockell was not as informative as I thought it would be, and I felt like without the accounts of Piper herself, the entire thing was mostly speculation, other than the first-hand accounts from the other people involved with her and her mother. Most of the time, they would mention an incident and then say, "We don't actually know what happened, but all we know is that she was crying, so it must have been really bad." Now, I think in general, it does add to the awareness about letting children be online in this manner and stuff like that, but I don't know why they decided to make a documentary about it before they actually had surefire information about the situation. But whatever. At my school, we do this thing called Beat Cancer Week, where we raise a lot of money for cancer foundation, like a cancer foundation throughout 1 week, doing things like barbecue lunches, paying to skip class, henna, stuff like that. One of the things that contributed to the total amount raised of over $20,000 was watching the Lego Batman movie at the cost of $5. Obviously, because this movie is wonderful, I had to complete the Lego movie franchise marathon that I started in January. This movie was even better than I remember and on par with the original, if not better, at 4.5 stars. I loved how they portrayed the Joker, like this insane villain with the goal of wiping out an entire city as a yearning fanboy, and the whole aspect of it gave it such a humorous touch, and it honestly felt like it was like a fan fiction character. After almost a month-long break, we got back into Harry Potter with the 5th movie. I love the 5th book, which is extremely controversial, but the movie adapted was so bad. They missed out on so many aspects of the novel that made it interesting and magical for me, and in general, compared to other films in the series that I watched, this was mediocre, and I was honestly disappointed. During the last 3 days of April, instead of studying for AP exams, I decided to watch movies in class. This mistake backfired on me completely, and my grades are still not recovered as a result. But who am I to shit on my past actions when it allowed me to add more content for this video? I watched Missing on the 27th, and even though I knew a hint of what was gonna happen, I didn't expect the ending of this movie. The police officers in this movie pissed me off, and the only guy that was actually helping this poor girl find her mom was the random guy on FaceTime with her from this from the random country that they were from. The daughter was incredibly intelligent and practically solved the entire mystery on her own with not a single person's help, and I rated it 3.5 stars, mainly because I was impressed and the twist actually surprised me. The next day, while I was working on AP Art, I watched Matilda for the first time in about 10 years. I hadn't realized how much of the movie I actually memorized until I found myself reciting entire passages of the script like I watched this movie every day for the past lifetime. The nostalgia I associate with this movie is indescribable, and if I had to choose one movie that represents my entire childhood, it would be this one. The same day, I watched Subservience, which I hated. This was like Companion, but 100 times worse, and the scenes where the robot was practically sexually assaulting the father disturbed me so much. I don't have much to say about this movie other than the fact that I almost every scene found something to make me uncomfortable watching it, and I could not watch it in one sitting. As is the trend with this month, I watched another movie in theaters. This one was a horror that I watched by myself. Let's just say that during the multiple instances of the movie that popcorn fell out of the bag and there were frightened tears running down my face at one point, I really enjoyed the concept of this movie, and I didn't know it was originally a game until I searched it up after I watched the film. Considering my enjoyment of the movie, I may check out the game soon, but I can't say this horror was life-changing in any sense. One fine morning, I started scrolling on Netflix and I found a rom-com I had not watched before. This was extremely strange at this point. I have looked far and wide for romantic comedies I have not watched. It's a Boy Girl Thing is a movie that mashes romance and Freaky Friday. The romance was sweet, but the Freaky Friday aspect of this movie freaked me out. Like, the first thing the guy does after swapping bodies with her is comment on her pubic hair. I mean, that is like one of the creepiest things I've ever heard of. And I will admit this movie goes into detail about some things that many people wouldn't think about in body switching movies, but did I really have to sit through multiple scenes of them talking about how to get rid of boners as high school students? Like, I think that it could have taken these characters I think they could have taken these characters and given them a romance story that would have been much higher than 2.5 stars if they chose literally any other concept for how to get them talking to each other. I mean, they were neighbors, for fuck's sake. Like, they could have done anything else, genuinely. The last movie I watched in April was We're the Millers. I expected some sort of family comedy with some nice found family bonds, but I hated it. The characters pissed me off. The supposed mother making out with a really young boy. The main character forcing these innocent people to join him on the drug heist, knowing that most of them had no other option other than to do so. Every aspect of it bothered me, and I was just so disappointed in it. This month, the month of May, is where this video comes to an end. With the next 16 days of movies, we will have covered almost half of a year. To start with this month with a bang, I watched another 1.5 star movie. I know, predictable, but Out of My League just entirely pissed me off because the guy was nowhere near a 5, and they spent the entire movie talking about it. She's right. If you're too insecure to treat a girl right just because she's pretty, and you shouldn't be in a relationship with her. If you imagine this insane power imbalance where there's none in reality, you shouldn't be in a relationship with that person. Should I mention that he should not be in a relationship with this person? Do not get me started on when he made fun of something that she was insecure about just because it wasn't something he deemed to be major. How hard is it to take someone's feelings seriously when they're obviously insecure about what they're speaking about? The next movie I watched managed to piss me off even more. Forgetting Sarah Marshall made me more angry at the shitty male characters in this movies, and I wanted to reach through the screen and strangle this guy. This stupid man gets mad at his girlfriend, who at the time had done nothing wrong, or he is unaware that she has done anything wrong, goes to a different country to basically follow her, ruins her relationship, which admittedly was bad for her, but she deserved to figure that out on her own. Cheats on his new girlfriend with his ex, whose relationship he just ruined, and then made a stupid musical that makes me never want to open Spotify again. Did I mention that this guy was stupid and ugly? Because he is. To cleanse my soul, I rewatched Clueless. I love this movie because it depicts women in a way that for once in these movies that I've watched this year was not objectifying. The character loves her looks and fashion, but she's still portrayed to be socially and academically intelligent, which I appreciate. The entire vibe to this movie has not been recreated since its release, and I don't know if it will for a long time. The next day, I found one of my favorite books from when I was 9 to 12 had been turned into a movie, and I didn't know about it. I mean, it's severely underrated, but for me not to have even heard about it is nuts. Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe was really good, but it didn't have the same impact that the book originally did for me. I felt like the characters weren't delved into enough, and the emotional impact that the book had on me for so long could not be replicated. The movie was amazing in general, but um just because I read the book and the book is so much better, I rated it 4 stars. Fun fact, when I was in the 8th grade, the author of this book followed me back on Instagram and we were mutuals for like a year before I created a new account. My old account is still up and he looks to still be following me, but we never became mutuals on my new page, which is very upsetting for me. The next movie I watched was Elephant, which I got lots of online recommendations for, but something about it just seemed so off to me. I felt like the way they formatted it made following the characters difficult, and there was a better way to portray the characters outside of this tragedy than how they did it. This film had potential, but I ultimately found it mediocre. The next 3 movies I watched were all with my girlfriend and are the last ones I have watched as of now. I started by rewatching Matilda with her and her mom after I told them about how much I connected with the film when I was younger. Neither of them have ever even heard of the film, but I think that they liked it as well. I rated it the same thing as I watched it just like a month prior. And the second to last was Quiz Lady, which I had heard of since it came out, but I haven't gotten around to it till now. I felt so much more connected with my sister after watching this movie, and I realized how much I miss her. We used to spend a lot of time together before she moved in with my mom, and I'm excited to move into my apartment so she can come visit me a bit more and she can get a break from our mom as well. Overall, the movie was silly and probably something that has happened to someone in real life considering how the internet works, so I rated it 4 stars. The last movie on this list was a film I watched 3 days ago in the theater. The new Hatsune Miku movie actually gave me chills from the animation and storyline. It was it was pretty deep considering that it's about a singing Vocaloid, and I loved how they involved all the groups from the game, and I wish they would make more films focusing on the groups themselves and their storylines that are present in the games. Walking into the theater, I expected just a silly movie about them like singing and stuff like that, and I walked out, hairs standing on my arms, emotionally moved by this singing Vocaloid movie, and I rated it 4.5 stars. I am not joking when I reiterate that half of this movie gave me goosebumps. It was so amazing. With that, the half-year Abby Brim letterboxd recap comes to an end. I didn't expect this video to be so long, but I hope you enjoyed it anyways. I have some other video concepts in the works that are not going to be nearly as long, but are more video essay or vlogging related. If you've made it this far, please let me know down in the comments if there's anything you'd like me to talk about in future videos or vlog ideas. Thank you for watching, and if you want to follow me on Letterboxd to see my past and future movie watches, that will be in the description below. Again, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed my first video.